All right, my name is Jack Diederich. The name of this talk is Name Things Once. Like many of my talks, this is about my pet peeves. So, naming things is hard. That's a saying in computer science. It's true, and this slide is kind of trite. Be boring, be precise. These are very vague rules. Hopefully by the end, you'll know more specifically what I mean by it and adopt those customs. Anyway, even if you don't take my advice, anytime you name something, you have to live with that choice for a long time. As soon as you hit the commit and it goes through diff review, it's there. You can change it later, but refactoring always feels like Red Queen's race, just running in place. So if you can get it right the first time, please do. You name things all the time. You live with other people's names all the time. When you're writing code, when you're reading code, even if you want to delete code, you have to trace all these names and trace all the paths and do all the work. Turns out that looking over the talks I've given over the last 10 years, most of them in one way or another are about naming or headspaces. Stop writing classes, don't do complicated things. Deleting code is hard. Useful namespaces, class decorators went in, I put them in Python 2.5, and it was a way to get around metaclasses. Metaclasses are horribly garbled names that describe an extremely difficult way to do very simple things. Class decorators made it easy to do the thing and easy to tell other people, this is exactly what I'm doing. So we need a framework for naming. I'm not going to invent any new words or resurrect obscure ones. So let's go with something that everybody knows. Who, what, when, where, why. These are all things that you can use in naming. Grammar school, this is what you do when you want to write a piece, when you're trying to explain to someone else what the thing does, what the purpose of the thing, the context around the thing. These are the kind of nouns and verbs that you will use when you name something, whether it's a function or a class. Who, what, when, where, why. I'm going to reorder that a little bit because I'm going to tell you to never use 4 out of these 5 things. So those 4 things are kind of metadata. Those are things about the thing that you're actually doing. If it's a class, then it's probably a container. It's a nouny thing, and it has a purpose. If it's a function, it's changing some data structure, and the name should be what it does. The who, when, where, why is useful metadata, and I encourage you to put that in a comment. People like to put it in package names. People like to put it in module names. So just put it in a comment. And the complaint about putting it in a comment is that no one will read it. Good. This is not something someone should have to know when they want to go and use your class or they want to go and use your function. This is just kind of anecdotal metadata about why you did the thing you did. So what? Always what? What is sort? What is transform? What is list? But once. So name things once. Don't name the function the same as the module. Don't name the class the same as the package. If you just tell someone the name once, they get it, right? And there's a couple bonus slides for a really old hatred that I'll revive. So naming perfection. It's unfair to slag on names without telling you an example of something that's really, really good. This is beautiful. It's not even a name on it. Everyone knows what's in the bag. It's got context all over it. It's a brown bag in a refrigerator. It's lunch. If you can get as close to this as possible with your code, do. Everything should be like this. You can't get there, but try. So there's tons of context in that brown bag in the refrigerator. It doesn't have written on it, Jack's lunch for Tuesday made by Jack. You don't care. It might have been made by Beth. Doesn't matter. It doesn't say Jack's lunch for Tuesday, because if today is Tuesday and it's a brown bag in the refrigerator, it's today's lunch. And you can just keep shortening and shortening, and take out the what, the when, and then at the very end, you want to pretty it up a little bit. The apostrophe S is unnecessary. Just go Jack. Or if this is my house and there's only one lunch in it, just nothing. It's fine. So this is the kind of perfection you want when you're naming things. Just don't surprise anybody. They'll love it. There are times when you want to add as much context as possible, because when that brown bag is in the fridge, you really don't want to surprise somebody. So if you're being a little snarky, it's Jack's lunch, not Larry's snack. Jack's urine sample, that's probably very important, because you don't want anyone looking in the bag. At our office, we actually had someone came to me. I don't know why they came to me, but they came up to me and they said, "Do you know why there's worms in the fridge?" And it turns out that the lady who waters the plants had kept a jar of nematodes in the office fridge. Someone asked me if I knew why they were there. I did not. But she did not write anything on it. So back to those 5 W's. So who is metadata? Who is organizational kind of things? It's the person who wrote it. It's the team they were on when they wrote the code. It's the project that they were doing when they wrote the particular function. All of these things don't help anyone. If someone sees the code, it doesn't really tell them too much. Once again, it's metadata. It might say, "Oh, okay, I'll go ask David why he wrote this thing." But it's not helping them find it. It's not helping them use it. When? Anything temporal. It doesn't matter what quarter, what half, what year you wrote a thing in. Terrible function names include things like _new. New to whom? It's been in the repo for 3 years. Like, how fresh is it? What does it do differently than the thing that doesn't have _old on it? For web-based products, this is exceptionally poor. V2, what version of Google search are you currently running? What version of Facebook are you currently running? It's whatever is there in front of you. So same thing for names. Just leave that stuff out. Where is anything spatial? Office location, what machines you intend to run this thing on, a relative path to the other directory that you're working with their team on. All these things don't tell you what it does. Why you wrote it. This goes back to similar to the _new or _v2. Speed up, rewrite, trial. You don't need those words, or if you do, you missed a step somewhere else. If it's exactly the same as something else but faster, just replace the thing, or include big loud glyphs about, like Jack's urine sample, why somebody should or shouldn't be using the other thing. So what? What is what you want to use to name your classes and your functions all the time? It's useful. When people look at it, it will tell them what it is or tell them what it does, and they'll look at it and say, okay, that's the thing I want. What it is, a list, a dict, perfect. I know exactly what those things are. Complete non-surprise. What does it do? List.sort is very close to your brown paper bag. It takes a list and it sorts it. You can guess what the name is. Even if you've never seen it before, you can probably figure out the kind of thing you want to do when you're naming. So, like the brown paper bag in the refrigerator, your users have a ton of context. The fact that they've imported your module or package means you are giving them some functionality that they want, they know about it, they're there. So they know about what the thing does. They don't need to know what company you work for. They don't need to know what team you're on. They don't need to know what you were doing or what you had for lunch the other day. They're there, they're using your thing. They have context. So that allows you to give a shorter name to most things. So here's one example from actual production code. I'm not particularly proud of, wasn't me. That has many of those W's in it. So from server factory client, commands, server factory command benchmark, import, server factory benchmark command. Name things once is the title of the talk. To benchmark a server using this library, you have to pass a loyalty test first. You have to type the project name 4 times. You have to type the word command 3 times. You have to type the word benchmark twice. This is, if you ever get me on a code review, this is like the first thing I'm going to say. It very accurately, so it kind of is a good name. It very accurately describes what the thing does. It just does a lot of it. And by the time you end up importing the server factory benchmark command, you kind of know what you want. So you can just chop out most of that stuff, and everybody will still be cool. Like, no doubts. As a kind of way to get around this, if you ever see these long names, and you don't quite know how to describe it as ridiculous, replace the dots with underscores. Because this is a terrible class name. No one would, right off the bat, type out this class name. It doesn't even fit in 80 characters. Like, but once you get down into the package and the package and the package and the module, like it all seems, every individual step seems okay. And when you're writing code, it's okay to do that. Remember when I said, once you commit things, it's forever, or for a long time. So sometimes it does help when you're writing code to say, okay, I'm going to make this package, and I'm going to put stuff in it that I'm going to use for this purpose. And yes, it is an H2 goal. And that's fine, as long as before you post the diff for review, you drop underscores and everything, and then say, okay, I can just make this really short. So none of the above. The who, what, when, where, why. We like one of those things. We dislike 4 of them. And then there's this entire category of things that just have none of that whatsoever. So even more obscure. Jokes. Please don't be clever. Right? The first slide said be boring and be precise. So when you and your buddy give something a jokey name and you get a laugh out of it, great. You haven't committed it yet. It's okay. It's time to undo that. Because everyone else in the organization is going to have to either get the joke or memorize what to them is an arbitrary link between a name and a purpose. Even if they get the joke, they just laughed at once. And they have to type it time and time again. So avoid jokes when possible. Again, you can just put that in a comment where no one will see it. Everyone will be happier. It's fantastic. Code names. Code names are meant to obscure things. This is not what you want to do when you're naming stuff. There is some trade-off in open source projects. You want a name for the overall project to be Googleable and unique, but maybe not so unique. Kenneth Reetz's requests, he had to kind of fight hard for that search ranking, but the request library does HTTP requests. Bam. Like, you see it, you know what it does, fantastic. All right, so hopefully that's more context for the first slide. Be simple and boring. Don't be redundant. And remember, your users have tons of context. So you can cut corners and make the name short. Thank you. Questions? benchmark. So the project name is Server Factory, but and then it's a command that benchmarks things.
So I think that like naming, it's hard to avoid sometimes naming the module and the class the same thing. So like how do you avoid that when you're doing one class?
So if you're doing one class per module, you're probably putting too much stuff in there, or not putting enough stuff in there. The standard library is the namespace is extremely flat. I mean, you do end up with things like string IO, but there are hundreds of standard library modules, and except for some that were either imported from other existing projects into the standard library, or things like the time zones, where there's just 100 definitions for different time zones, there's just not a lot of packages nested. Like
The paper bag actually gave it a who name. It's a who name. You're not in there. Your lunch is. It's named after whose bag it is.
it's kind of a what. What it is Jack's lunch. Anyone else?
So other languages can be particularly bad at this, to say any names. Do you think that there are things about Python which make this easier, or is it really just like a cultural thing that needs to happen like within an organization?
So the question was, other languages have standards or even requirements about names, and Python doesn't. And yes, so if you're coming from the J world, there are standards and practices that you have to obey. In the case of Java, like it's enforced. Sometimes there are organizational naming things that you have to do, and in that case, that's the custom, and you just have to go with it. But beyond what is absolutely required, Python is very open. It will let you name things how you want. So you can get away with a lot, and you can make short names when you want to. The question was, how do you use init files and modules inside a package? I prefer as few modules as possible. About where I start to get, we should break this into two pieces, is around 1,000 lines of code. Other people are more like 10, which seems a little too skimpy. Maybe I'm on the heavy end. And yes, so when you do have a module that has 1,000 lines of code in it, there's usually only one or two of those things that you want to export as an API. And those are the two things that you'll pluck out and put in the dunder init to show to other people. Anyone else? All right. Thank you for having me. Have a good conference.